Hey everybody, I'm Paul Lemiski from Legacy Lumber and Canadian Woodworks, and today we're back for another Tool Tuesday. We're going to show you how we heat our shop, dry lumber in our kilns using our outdoor wood boiler. Ow! It's hot. So here we are at our two outdoor wood boilers, which we use one of them to my right here to heat the shop. This one here we use to heat one of our kilns to dry our lumber. What's an outdoor wood boiler? Good question. They're also called an outdoor wood furnace. And basically, there's a fire on the inside in a chamber, and then surrounding that entire chamber is a whole bunch of water. In this case, both of these have 300 gallons of water surrounding the fire. That water then gets pumped through tubing underground to all sorts of different things depending on how you're going to use that hot water. For us, we have it running through our shop floor. We have about 4,000 to 5,000 feet of half-inch thick PEX tubing in the concrete floor, and the floor is also insulated. So you have insulation, the PEX tubing, and finally the concrete. Basically the water gets pumped from here to a manifold and gets distributed throughout the floor. That heat then radiates out of the concrete and keeps our feet especially warm. All the tools and workbenches are nice and warm because all the heat it's radiating up. Our floor is 6 inches thick, and I don't know the exact amount of concrete in there, but I do recall the concrete itself cost us about $11,000. It's reinforced with fiber, and it's been a fantastic addition because we moved from the small shop to this big shop and we had to get the floor poured, all in plans to utilize an outdoor wood boiler. Of course, you got to keep the fire going, so you need to have lots of wood, which fortunately, we run a sawmill company that creates lumber. So we have waste off of all the logs. The outside cuts of the logs are waste cuts that we can't really do much with. We decided to actually heat the shop and dry wood with the wood waste. So the wood waste from the sawmill goes into a big giant pile, which is right over here. We then cut it up into smaller pieces, store them here in our huts. Oh, we've got some birds. Hey. And then we load them into the wood boiler as we need to do it. So it's awesome that we're getting rid of our waste that we're creating while sawmilling. There's many different brands of wood boilers. These are an Empire 450 designed for 8,000 square feet. So plenty for my shop, which is around 4,500 square feet. Although we're one big room, we're also in a barn that's not insulated very, very well. So we do burn more wood than you would use for 8,000 square feet in a home. The other one goes underground, the water, to a insulated shipping container, which we've converted into a kiln chamber. And the way the heat gets transferred in that one is that we have a radiator in there, 3 feet by 3 feet, big giant fan blowing, and this hot water is being pumped through the radiator. The fan blows air from the chamber through the radiator, transferring the heat out of the water into the chamber, finally into the wood, which then releases the moisture out of the wood. So this one is burning fairly often because the kiln we use is called a heat to vent kiln. So one end gets heated and eventually the heat actually leaves out the other end. So you're using a lot more heat than normal. If you had to pay for your material, it may not be the best way to dry lumber these days. But again, when you have a sawmill with wood waste, heating your own kiln with it gets 2 thumbs up from me. If you know me, I'm all about online classifieds and deals for stuff that I purchase. So both of these units, one I got a way better deal on versus the other. I got this one now about 5 years ago, and I paid $6,000 for it. And the gentleman that I purchased it from ran a business reselling these and selling new ones. He also was just like me. You come to me and you want to learn to build a table, I'll write down every point on a piece of paper, some diagrams, talk about cutting the glue line, gluing it together, all that stuff. He was a true professional with this industry, and he was able to educate me exactly how to do the plumbing inside my shop, how to do the plumbing back here. He had the pumps, all the parts I needed, all in one shot. It was fantastic. And I was able to do all this plumbing myself using his hand-drawn diagrams from a piece of paper. Number 2, I paid $1,500 for it. Facebook Marketplace, about 45 minutes away. The owner had purchased a house. This was already disconnected from the house and they were just trying to sell it. So I got a smoking deal on this. One of the first used classifieds that I didn't negotiate on. I just went there, I'm like, here's your $1,500, that's fantastic. So we talked about the used price that I paid for these wood boilers. The new price for a wood boiler like this is in the range of $12,000, maybe even upwards of $14,000. So huge savings by finding them used. The nice thing about these two units is they have a stainless steel interior firebox. So we never have to worry about the firebox rusting and water leaking into the fire, which is obviously not a good thing. So the wood burns, obviously it creates ashes. I'm gonna definitely get asked how often do I have to empty the ashes. For us, it's about once a month. They do have long ash pans in the bottom that the ash is designed to fall through. So we just slide the long ash pan out, flip it over, dump it in our the bucket of the tractor, and then we also let the fire burn down inside and basically shovel those ashes out into the bucket of the tractor too. We have an outdoor burn pit, which we do burn some wood that is just too huge or gnarly or whatever to get into here. So we just mix those ashes in with our current other burn pile. We'll have to chimney sweep the chimney once in a while, maybe once a month, once every 2 months, something like that. We're burning a lot of wood that's not very dry. There's a lot of work in getting the moisture out of the wood, which then creates like the resins and stuff that builds up in the chimney. At least we've noticed that, so we try to keep that clean. Now, how does it work? Good question. The water jacket, the 300 gallons that we have around the furnace, we want to maintain a certain temperature. And we keep these at between 164 degrees and 174 degrees Fahrenheit. How do we do that? There's a fan in here that once it hits 174 degrees, the fan shuts off, and there's also a plate that closes the oxygen into the fire. So the fire will actually go out and just kind of smother itself out in there until it cools down to 164 degrees Fahrenheit, and then this fan's gonna kick right back in, just like this. Initiate the fan. Oh, look at that. So it lifted up the magnetic cover and the fan turned on, and now it's blowing air into that, and it's gonna heat this fire up until the thermostat hits 174 degrees. Fan will shut off, fire will smother itself out until it gets to 164, and it's just gonna repeat its process. We actually have a mixture of glycol, which is non-toxic antifreeze, mixed with the water. So if we stop using these, we don't have a worry of the water freezing and damaging any of the lines or the wood boilers themselves. All right, so here we are inside my shop where we can see what looks like a rat's nest of plumbing is actually relatively organized. At least I tell myself that. We have two loops going on. We have one loop that's always being pumped from the wood boiler to here, and it's in a constant flow. We have a second loop, which is this pump here, which can take water from that loop, mix it with the water coming back out of the floor to get the temperature that you want to go into the floor. We talked earlier, the wood boiler is at 164 to 174 degrees Fahrenheit. You do not want to put water that hot into the floor. It will actually damage the concrete. We're actually going to be balancing between about 90 degrees Fahrenheit up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit of water going into the floor, depending how cold the winter is. How do we do that? We take the really hot water, and we have a three-way valve. The water that's coming out of the floor currently is 78 degrees. This three-way valve will mix the 78 degree water with the 170 degree water to create the temperature that you want going into the floor. In our case right now, the water is 100 degrees Fahrenheit going into the floor. This is the PEX piping, about 4,000 to 5,000 feet of it. Different zones that you could adjust the speed of the water going through, the amount of water going through. We have some main kind of shut-offs. We have a temperature gauge right here, temperature gauge here. On the bottom of the three-way valve is a screw that you can turn in and out, and that will adjust the temperature of the water going into the floor. Now for our kiln, we just use the maximum temperature water flowing through that radiator. So we have one pump located right here that's doing one circuit from the wood boiler all the way through the kiln radiator back to the wood boiler. Much simpler setup than the floor. Works very, very well.